So I've been visiting James over the last few months in 2 different studios that he's had. One being a kind of temporary studio space, and now you've recently moved to a more secure, stable environment. And something that came up from the first visit with James was this idea of precariousness, which was like kind of really evident in how he treated the studio and how his work was kind of on show or stacked away. And then kind of comes to life every so often, but it's always just like modular and made to just...
Yeah, it's always made to be kind of packed away, I suppose, or literally to be kind of in transit at any point. Because some of you won't know, but the first studio that Noel's talking about was a kind of... it was a free studio set up by Castlefield Gallery for artists in Manchester to use the space. And they use kind of derelict buildings or abandoned buildings, usually kind of office buildings around Manchester, so that the owners don't have to pay business rates, and from that they kind of have a free space. And it's good, I found it really useful to have that, because I'd had those studios since I'd graduated. That was like 3 years ago now. There was a couple of sites and I'd moved from place to place, which meant I'd never paid rent on a studio after graduating, which I think is really good, I think, because it gives you a bit of space to make work and to think about work, and to maybe not have so much pressure on you when it comes to thinking about finances and things like that. But the kind of flip side of that is that it's very tenuous. Tenuous in the sense that you kind of your tenure there is only 6 months. It's kind of capped at 6 months. You can have the option to renew it, but you have to have a kind of a plan for how that is, for how you're going to use the space each time. But also in the sense that the building could be sold off, or the contract could just end with a month's notice. So what that kind of, initially I kind of tried to kind of work against that and kind of, I don't know, essentially sort of pretend it wasn't happening, but eventually I think I realised that the best thing to do is to just kind of accept it for what it is. And that is when I started making work kind of like this really, using the materials that I use, and very small scale works, things that can be packed away, broken down, like Noel says, kind of modular, just with the idea that I can, keep doing it for as long as I can, but if need be, it can just be kind of broken down and stored away. So yeah, I guess it's kind of interesting now, as Tom kind of mentions it in his writing about moving to a more permanent space, how that affects the work that you make. So yeah.
But it's kind of that initial kind of precariousness with the Castlefield space.
Yeah.
And that kind of economy of the materials you're using, the way of making, that started to shift the aesthetic of your work from some of the works that will be on the slideshow, which I think has stopped.
Okay, I'll stop. I'm going to have to keep doing this, unfortunately, because I don't know how to loop slideshows on the preview. So,
just keep doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like now seemed to kind of just really developed like a signature in the materials you work with. Like it tends to just be cardboard.
Yeah.
And off-the-shelf timber.
Yeah. Well, that's because initially some of the works that you've seen here, I've always kind of worked with objects, really, since I was in university. And one of the big things which happened is that when you work like that, I think you've kind of said it yourself, you just end up hoarding things because you kind of don't want to miss out on the kind of potential of making a work, out of a found thing. You don't want to kind of miss out on that because it could come further down the line that you need to use, I don't know, whatever it is, like top of a tin of paint or something. But the kind of downside of that is that you just have like this collection of objects that you have to move around with you all the time. Obviously it's fine to work like that if you've got a permanent space, but as I was saying, I didn't have a permanent space, so I had to learn very quickly not to work like that and to kind of make work that kind of I've kind of said it, not so much reflective of that, but kind of is more indicative of that. You know, it's more kind of, that's more like something which is a plus, I suppose. To, you know, it kind of aids in decision making. It aids in your kind of, well, I certainly find it useful to not have to work like that, because it's almost becomes like some sort of neurosis or something. You just become like a compulsive collector of things that you might one day make into work.
Like me.
Yeah, you know, and more often than not it doesn't really work out, or it takes a long time for that to work out. So yeah.
And I think that sort of going back to that choice in materials,
yeah,
especially in here, like using these kind of lengths of 3x1, and like everything's really standardized, and we've talked about that quite a bit, and that's somewhere where we kind of really cross over in our interests, is that idea of standardization, and how kind of design is homogenized, how art's homogenized, like but this, I guess you seem to use it in a kind of a really different way, which sort of stems from drawing in your practice. We've discussed that, and that not being evident. It's kind of evident in this show. And there's bits, I guess, like the thought bubble that's cut up. There's sort of, you know, pencil marks on that. The scrunched up balls of paper, if you like, that kind of reference that drawing process as well.
Yeah, because I mean, I suppose like the kind of drawing process for me is a way of kind of getting out of my head what it is that I'm kind of interested in, about kind of like these things about modularity and design and all these kind of things. It's like the kind of first step in the process towards making these objects. But I think I've kind of said to you that that drawing is kind of only really for me. It's only there. It's my kind of working process. It's not my practice. My practice is this. And I guess that's where the kind of balls come from. It's a way of, it's like a homage to that kind of process of working through things in a physical way. You know, physically drawing on paper, maybe ideas not working out, and kind of, you know, discarding them. It's a way of kind of having that kind of process here, but in a less kind of obvious way, or like in a kind of roundabout way. I suppose it's kind of, in some ways, it's a way of accepting that sense of failure that comes with working through things.
Yeah, and I think they kind of go beyond that as well, because it's not just making that sort of quite easy gesture of like scrunching up balls of paper. Like in what, I always forget how you make these. So.
Well, it's quite a kind of matter of fact way, really. I scrunched up a paper ball, then I kind of hardened it using like layers of primer and gloss and stuff, and then cast that. I cast that in kind of silicone, and then I cast in prop foam. The idea was that they'd be they're kind of like stress balls, essentially, like artist stress balls. And you know, I think I kind of said at one point that it's almost trying to commodify that kind of failure or something. You know, it's kind of it's making something out of that.
The stress of a lost idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of like, I always imagine it like maybe as something that people can just kind of take away with them.
Don't take any away. Can you take them away?
Well, I've only ever showed them once before, and there was about 100, and we came back with about 92. So some people must have taken them away. It's just kind of inevitable, though, I guess, isn't it? I mean, yeah. If you want to take them, do, as long as you give it back.
So no. I want to borrow one for a bit.
Well, I know where most of you live anyway, so.
So I guess kind of like, talking around the things within the exhibition.
Yeah.
I guess we need to talk about the models.
Yeah.
The models.
Yeah, these are kind of these. I mean, I guess this is my way of kind of working through. Essentially, when I started making these things, I kind of found it was necessary to sort of kind of start again, basically with a kind of clean slate, because I mean, you know, from the slides there you see that I'd made lots of different kinds of work, and this was a good opportunity to sort of start again and to kind of really strip down my interests, kind of limit my engagement with things, and then kind of just have an excuse to make objects, to make things, and from that I've kind of found that actually it's channeled all the things that I am actually interested in, and that I do want to make work about, like standardised environments, architecture to some degree, repetition, kind of, you know, minimalism, all, you know, geometry, all these kind of things. So I mean, yeah, these are kind of they're ways of channeling those interests. They're all kind of they're all modular. They're kind of maquettes, really, I suppose, for bigger ideas or sculptures perhaps that will be kind of made one day. But they're also things in themselves, and they kind of come in a lot of ways from my interest in images. Again, going back to this idea of drawing, a kind of two-dimensional process, and making something three-dimensional from that, but also retaining this kind of two-dimensionality to things. That's what the structure kind of references, this idea of framing. It's an elongated structure, and as you kind of walk through it, the objects are kind of framed and unframed and move outside and move in. So yeah, I suppose it's like, yeah, that's what I'm, yeah, it's the kind of idea of images, I suppose, is what stemmed it, I think, initially, and then everything's kind of come from that.